Could you talk a little bit about? I know that you've brought this up in past discussions, but since this is my audience are largely creative writers, especially speculative fiction writers, you talk to a certain extent about science fiction with great disdain, and I love it. And
Well, I can tell you that in the forum on November 10th at the Washington National Cathedral, Jeff Bezos was saying that he was inspired to use his wealth to advance space tourism by watching Star Trek as a kid. And I was sitting next to Avril Haines, the director of national intelligence. I was telling her, I never found Star Trek inspiring or attractive because the storyline violates the laws of physics. And, it bothers me. I cannot enjoy a storyline that violates the laws of physics. It doesn't look real to me. It actually bothers me because not only that it doesn't look real, it's misleading the reader. So I think, why bother to even continue reading it or watching it? Avril Haines said, well, we have to work on you, Avi. Now, I actually reported on this in a commentary that was published in The Hill a couple of weeks ago. And then the same day, I heard from William Shatner, who played Captain Kirk on Star Trek. He wanted to interview me. And I had this interview a few days ago. And I told William Shatner, I said, look, you are the best person to tell the difference between virtual reality and the actual reality that we live in, because you played the role of Captain Kirk on USS Enterprise, which is virtual reality, okay? And then about half a year ago, you flew into space. So you actually witnessed the reality of flying to space. And it's probably quite different, right? And I asked him, and he said he completely agreed with me. He said it's a completely different experience. So here you have it.
yeah, I think what Avril might have been alluding to. I mean, I wasn't there, but I find that a lot of the people who say that they were inspired by it, it was really just a tool to get them interested enough to pursue it. So I've heard that with a lot of NASA people too. Oh, I joined NASA because I loved Star Trek as a kid. And maybe that's what it's good for, digging those people out of society so they'll go into these fields. I'm an advocate for science fiction authors to, rather than creating a pseudoscience to serve the story, have the story served by a more accurate understanding of science. But I don't know
Okay,
if you can.
but then okay, so the reason we are in that situation where the narrative violates the laws of physics is because the scientists are boring. Okay, so the way science is done is really not inspiring because again, a lot of scientists are trying to portray an image that they are experts, or trying to advocate notions that are not testable, or all kind. Okay, so my point is, science could be exciting. Doesn't need to be boring. You don't need to invent new laws of physics in order to make your storyline exciting. And I'm trying to demonstrate that with the Galileo Project. So here is a project to find equipment. So as a science fiction writer, you don't need to go very far. You just subscribe to the laws of physics. You know about the Galileo Project. Just imagine that the Galileo Project finds a piece of hardware in space. It could be close to the Earth. I mean, already Arthur C. Clarke imagined that in Rendezvous with Rama, but it was one possible storyline. But you can imagine many other storylines resulting, depending on what this object is, right? If it's a tiny object that has artificial intelligence that tries to, it could be like a Trojan horse, like we say, oh, it looks really cute. We accept it to our society, and then it does all kinds. I mean, there are lots of storylines that you can imagine, but I'm saying they are rooted in science. What the Galileo Project is doing is using the scientific method to search near Earth for objects that might have been manufactured by an extraterrestrial technological civilization. And all you need to incorporate into that storyline is your imagination as to how our civilization, technological civilization, will be in a century from now, maybe a millennium from now, maybe a million years from now. Okay, so just imagine us better, bigger and better, and then say, okay, maybe someone else is already in that phase, and just imagine that someone else sending equipment for 1 billion years into space, and just imagine this equipment reaching us on Earth. We are at a much more primitive state, but how do we interact with that? Okay, and I'm saying this is science fiction in a way, right? Because we haven't yet found that, but it could become science real when the Galileo Project finds these things. So it's worthwhile exploring, because then we will start contemplating with various scenarios. Currently there is no protocol to dealing with how to engage with a piece of. Now, if you think about the past, people said, oh, we are searching for radio signals from other stars, okay? And of course, the nearest star is 4 light years away. So for a round trip conversation, it would take a decade, okay? And a decade is a long time. You can take your time, no rush as to how to respond to it. But imagine a piece of equipment just next to you. You don't have time. You have to decide immediately what to do about it, how to engage with it. The protocol is completely different. And currently there is no international agreement regarding how to respond. And even if there was, some crazy guy somewhere would violate that protocol. And that is a basis for another science fiction story. If everyone agrees to behave, and then someone else is not behaving, what would happen? I'm saying just combining humans with equipment from another civilization more advanced that represent our future is the baseline for so many narratives that you can think about of science fiction, but they would be rooted in science. They don't require Captain Kirk riding on a USS Enterprise as if a human can survive in, humans can, by the way, that's the other thing that Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, they're talking about putting a lot of humans in space. Actually, Bezos was talking about, at first millions of humans out there, and then ultimately maybe 1 trillion that would regard Earth as a national park that they go to visit every now and then. And I just thought that makes no sense, because if you put a human for more than a few years in space, that human would not survive, because we are protected by the magnetic field and the atmosphere of Earth. We wouldn't survive by the bombardment of cosmic rays, energetic particles in space. So clearly they haven't worked out the health hazards. And how can they contemplate sending so many humans to their death, right? That makes no. So my point is, so even business people talk about things that are not following, scientific reasoning, and the scope of science constrained by the laws of physics is so rich that it's not boring at all. Why not stick to science and just imagine narratives that could be real and might be real, depending on what the Galileo Project finds.